All right, everyone get ready because today we're going deep on pharmacokinetics. It's a pretty fascinating area, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to be looking at how drugs move through the body. We have an introductory text on pharmacokinetics that we're going to be taking a look at today. It's going to be a fun one.
Absolutely. It's really interesting stuff.
Yeah, if you want to understand how medications actually work, this is the place to be.
It is. This is really the foundation for understanding drug therapy.
Yeah. So we'll be uncovering some really interesting things about how drug concentration is measured, why it's not as simple as it might seem.
Right. Yeah. It's way more complex than you would think.
So what is pharmacokinetics?
Well, it's basically how drugs move through the body, like we said. And there are a bunch of different processes involved, but the key ones are absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. And sometimes people tack on toxicity there at the end, too.
Okay.
So it's ADMS, or ADMET.
Got it. ADMET. So how does understanding all this help us design better drug delivery systems?
So that's a great question. So when we're designing drugs, we need to make sure that they can actually reach their target in the body.
Right.
And we need to understand how the drug is absorbed and distributed. And to figure that out, we can measure the concentration of a drug in the plasma portion of the blood.
Well, the plasma.
Yeah.
What's so special about the plasma?
Well, the plasma is the liquid part of your blood. And that's where most drugs are circulating throughout your body. And by measuring the concentration of a drug in your plasma, we can get an idea of how much of that drug is actually in your system at a given time.
Okay, that makes sense. So when a drug enters the bloodstream, does it just kind of float around freely until it reaches its target?
That's a great question. And the answer is not exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Some drugs bind to proteins in your plasma, while other drugs remain unbound. And here's the thing. Only the unbound drug can actually interact with your body and produce effects.
Oh, wow. So if a drug is bound to a protein, does that mean it's useless?
Well, temporarily, until it becomes unbound. Yeah, you got it. Think of it like this. The bound drug is hitching a ride on a protein, temporarily out of commission.
Oh.
It's the unbound drug that can actually get off at its designated stop and do its job.
I like that analogy. That's a good one.
Thanks.
So when we measure the drug concentration, are we looking at the total amount or just the unbound portion?
Yeah, that's a great question. Usually when we talk about drug concentration, we're referring to the total concentration.
Okay.
Both bound and unbound. But it's important to remember that only the unbound drug is active in the body.
So how do we know how much is unbound and ready to go?
Yeah, so that's where something called FU comes in. It stands for the fraction of unbound drug.
Okay.
And it's basically a way to quantify what percentage of the drug in your plasma is actually free to interact with your body.
A few.
Yeah,
Okay.
FU.
I'm intrigued.
So FU is often a constant value for many drugs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that means we can use it to predict how much of a drug will be active in your system.
So knowing FEU can help us design better drugs.
Exactly. And personalized treatments.
I am starting to see how all this is connected. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, you mentioned something earlier about pharmacokinetic models. What are those?
So those are basically mathematical models that we can use to predict how a drug will behave in the body.
Okay.
And we can use these models to figure out things like how long it takes for a drug to be absorbed, how it's distributed to different organs, and how quickly it's eliminated.
So it's like having a crystal ball to see how a drug will perform.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
And by refining these models, we can make more informed decisions about things like dosage and frequency of administration.
That makes a lot of sense. Wow, this is blowing my mind.
It's really cool stuff.
It's incredible how much goes into understanding how drugs work in our bodies. We've covered a lot of ground so far, from ADM to FU and these pharmacokinetic models. But I'm curious about those drug delivery systems you mentioned earlier. How do they fit into all of this?
So drug delivery systems are all about getting the drug to the right place at the right time, in the right amount.
So it's not just about taking a pill and hoping for the best.
Not quite. There's a whole science behind it.
Oh, wow.
And drug delivery systems can be as simple as a tablet or a capsule, or as complex as a sophisticated implant, or even tiny nanoparticles designed to deliver medication directly to specific cells.
Nanoparticles delivering drugs directly to cells.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's pretty amazing. But no matter how complex the system, understanding pharmacokinetics is crucial for its design and development.
Yeah, I bet.
We need to know how the drug will behave in the body, its absorption rate, distribution pattern, metabolism, and excretion to create a system that works effectively.
So it's like pharmacokinetics provides the instruction manual.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
For example, What if we're developing a patch that delivers a drug through the skin?
Right.
How do we use pharmacokinetics for that?
So we need to consider how the drug will be absorbed through the skin, how it'll travel through the bloodstream, and how quickly it'll be eliminated.
Okay.
By understanding these pharmacokinetic principles, we can design a patch that releases the drug at a controlled rate, ensuring a consistent level of medication in the body.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff.
It seems like we can fine-tune these systems to make them really precise.
Yeah, and as we learn more about individual variations in pharmacokinetics, we can even start to think about personalizing drug delivery systems.
Oh, wow.
Imagine a future where your medication is delivered in a way that's tailored to your unique ADM profile.
That would be incredible. Fewer side effects, better treatment outcomes.
Yeah, exactly.
So we talked about plasma concentration time curves earlier. What can those tell us?
So those curves are like visual representations of a drug's journey through the body.
Okay.
They show us how the concentration of a drug in the plasma changes over time.
So it's like a graph.
Yeah, that tracks the drug's journey through time.
Okay. And you mentioned 3 different types of curves in the source material?
Right.
What were those again?
So the first curve, curve 1, represents slow absorption. This is typical of drugs taken orally, like a pill.
Gotta.
The concentration of the drug in the plasma gradually increases as it's absorbed from the digestive system, reaches a peak, and then slowly declines as the drug is metabolized and eliminated.
Oh, so if I take a pill curve, I might be charting its course.
Exactly. And then curve 2 shows rapid absorption, typically seen with intravenous injections.
Right.
The drug enters the bloodstream directly, resulting in a sharp peak in concentration, followed by a rapid decline as the body starts to eliminate it.
So if you inject a drug directly into the bloodstream, it's going to hit its peak concentration much faster.
Exactly.
Okay.
And finally, we have curve 3, which represents continuous infusion, like an IV drip.
Right.
In this case, the drug is delivered at a constant rate, and the plasma concentration reaches a steady state, remaining relatively stable over time.
So with continuous infusion, it's all about keeping a consistent level of the drug in the system.
Exactly.
Wow.
Each of these curves tells a unique story about how a drug interacts with the body, providing valuable information for optimizing drug delivery and ensuring treatment effectiveness.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into pharmacokinetics so far. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the complexity of how drugs work in our bodies. It's amazing to think that something as simple as taking a pill involves so many intricate processes.
It really is, and the more we understand about these processes, the better equipped we are to develop safer, more effective, and more personalized treatments for a wide range of conditions.
Absolutely. Yeah. It really is mind-boggling when you think about all these factors, how a drug is absorbed, how it's eliminated. It can really change how effective it is, and the side effects.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why it's so important to take medication as prescribed, and talk to your doctor if you have any concerns.
For sure. If you understand even the basics of pharmacokinetics, you can really be a more informed patient.
Definitely. And the more we can unravel the mysteries of how drugs move through the body, we can create safer, more effective, and personalized treatments for so many conditions.
Oh, yeah. It feels like we're really on the edge of a revolution in medicine. And pharmacokinetics is leading the way.
I think so too. It's a very exciting time to be in this field. There's just so much potential to improve human health and well-being.
All right, so we've covered a lot in this deep dive so far. From ADMET to FU and those incredible drug delivery systems, it's clear that pharmacokinetics is shaping the future of medicine.
Definitely. It's been a really fascinating journey, and I hope everyone listening has enjoyed this deep dive into how drugs interact with our bodies.
I know I have. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. We've talked about all this potential of pharmacokinetics, but is there anything we should be cautious about as this field keeps advancing?
That's a great question. As with any powerful tool, we need to be mindful of its potential impact. So, for example, as we gather more data about individual pharmacokinetic profiles, it's super important to think about the ethics, about how that information is used and protected.
That's a great point. We need to make sure that these advances are used responsibly and ethically to improve healthcare for everyone.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that scientific progress should always go hand in hand with ethical considerations.
Well said. So to our listeners out there, stay curious, keep learning, and remember that even the smallest pill holds a world of scientific wonder.
And as you continue on your own health journeys, keep in mind the incredible power of understanding how your body interacts with the medications you take.
Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep diving deep into the world of knowledge.
Yeah, it's really amazing, isn't it, how much is going on that we don't even think about.
Yeah.
It's just a tiny little pill.
It's incredible.
It is incredible.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners today? Final thoughts. Well, I guess I would just encourage everyone to stay curious about how the medications work. Ask your doctor questions. Do your own research.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to advocate for yourself.
I think that's great advice.
Pharmacokinetics can seem daunting at first,
It can?
but it's really not that complicated
No.
once you understand the basic concepts.
Yeah. And it's really empowering to be able to understand how your body's interacting with the medications you take.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
I've learned so much,
Me too.
and I hope our listeners have too.
Yeah, me too.
It's been a fascinating deep dive into pharmacokinetics, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for this field.
Yeah, me too.
Until next time, everyone, stay curious and keep learning.
Bye, everyone.